Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with a look at some great Total War news we got just today. Now a lot of us saw it coming, they dropped some pretty clear hints for it, and though I was still hoping for a complete 180 with Skaven, even I had a feeling we're getting Norsca, and they sound extremely cool. We got a trailer and a roster reveal on the same day, and a release date, August 10th. Anybody that has pre-ordered the second game will get access to the DLC for free on that date for the first game, as long as they got it from an approved retailer. Or you can of course buy it as a separate piece of DLC instead for the first game. Again, this is for Total War Warhammer 1. Without taking too much time, let's dive right into what we learned today. There are some key Norscan faction mechanics and resulting battlefield mechanics that sound pretty interesting to me. Rage is a backbone mechanic that is assigned to all Norscan units. There are 3 phases to Rage, granting extra leadership, extra physical resistance, and extra melee attack the longer they're in combat. This means that Norscans fight better the longer they've been in combat, so a high melee defense or unbreakable units used against Norscans might actually come back to bite you if it allows Norscans to get enraged before engaging the rest of your army. Definitely an interesting mechanic, not entirely similar to what they announced for the Dark Elves, but there are definitely some similarities. Units that have the Berserk attribute are quicker to get through these stages of enragement and get better benefits from them as well. Frostbite, while not a faction ability, is a new type of attribute damage that comes as a result of the Norscans. It slows the enemy down significantly when you strike them, allowing you to slow down advances and flanking maneuvers with a handful of units. On the campaign map, the Norscans will have some great mechanics as well that we've already been told of, and maybe some others that are still being hidden from us by those sneaky CA devs. As can be expected, a Norscan campaign is one of raiding, pillaging, and faith. Staying on the move, warring with multiple factions, and building shrines to the dark gods are all in a day's work. Dominate other factions by killing their faction leaders. Rather than the leader being wounded and coming back to be beaten by you once more, you'll be able to confederate a tribe whose leader you've killed. Makes sense for such a warlike tribe and culture, and it's a great twist on diplomacy. During your expansions, you'll be able to build marauder outposts in coastal settlements to act as hubs for basic recruitment. See it as conquering a port so your greatest warriors may safely arrive there by sea from the north. Capturing a faction capital will allow you to build a proper Norscan settlement instead, and you can also unlock parts of the tech tree with different faction capitals. Another interesting mechanic implying raiders learning from the people they conquer. Monster hunting is another interesting addition coming, unlocked through the tech tree, opening access to what's called the Monstrous Arcanum. This massive tome listing the greatest beasts of the world unlocks quest chains that will have you hunting these great beasts, slaying them in a final battle, and gaining legendary trophies that can give characters certain benefits if they're carrying them. Alternatively, you may be able to tame these beasts. I'm curious if these beasts are completely new creatures, or if they're simply upgraded versions of pre-existing beasts, with different abilities or boosted stats. Either way, sounds like this will be more or less a quest-giving mechanic that goes beyond unlocking character-specific items. Allegiance to the gods is all about representing the faith factor. Anytime you conquer a city, you can choose to raise it, and in its stead, erect a monolith to a dark god. That's right, just the one. But Norscans have different names for these 4 dark gods: the eagle, the crow, the serpent, and the hound. The gods that you earn favor from by doing so will give you various boons in battle and on the campaign map, but focusing on one god will surely upset gods that you haven't been paying your respects to. To trigger the endgame, you have to get to and accept the final reward from the god of your choosing. The 3 you have forsaken will seek to kill you, and in a series of epic endgame quest battles, they'll try to defeat you with their champions. That sounds downright amazing and very fitting and representative. I'm so excited for this faction, they sound really cool, and there are a lot of interesting new mechanics being introduced. On to the legendary lords. Wulfrik the Wanderer, or the World Walker, or the Eternal Challenger is a very powerful Norscan leader who, over the course of his life, had the pleasure of slaying giants, killing dragons, and finishing off the unworthy champions of the gods. I enjoy his backstory quite a bit, so I do want to delve into it a little. During his life as a regular man, he gained notoriety for himself and his tribe through his sheer strength and capabilities in combat, killing and taking the heads of chaos champions he came across and fighting all manner of beasts and monsters. His activities obviously brought the attention of the Chaos Gods, and with his constant successes, he was growing more and more confident in his abilities. These 2 factors combined when he decided to brag after the Battle of 1,000 Skulls, in which he killed Torgald, the Chaos Lord leading the tribe Aeslink. Drinking from King Torgald's skull, celebrating the victory with a grand feast, one thing led to another, and Wulfrik began to boast about everything from how much he could drink to all the things he had killed until he finally declared that he was equal to any and all warriors in this world and in the world beyond. Naturally, the Dark Gods were offended, but as they are prone to do, they decided to put this self-proclaimed greatest warrior of all time to the test. They sent an emissary to Wulfrik in his dreams that night and told him of his newly assigned duty: to travel all around the world and defeat, in single combat, the fiercest challengers, whether they be men, monsters, or worse. Failing this task would result in eternal torment, as Wulfrik's soul would be deemed unworthy to join the gods in their halls, and he would be cast aside in death. When Wulfrik awoke, he was given a gift of the gods, specifically the gift of tongues, which allowed him to communicate with all manner of creatures in the world so that he might challenge them to a duel in their own language. More specifically, it's so that he might insult his targets in a way that they can fully comprehend to ensure that he's able to duel them. Eventually, as a result of his need to travel down to Khemri, Wulfrik obtained Seafang by assaulting the scaling witch Baga Yar's fortress in a bloody and expensive battle. After that, he chased the witch down, chopped off her limbs, and boiled her in her own cauldron. So he paid at least an arm and a leg for his magical ship, just not his own. Now this should paint a picture of the type of person that Wulfrik is. In-game, as we've been told, Wulfrik is a duelist, which makes sense, and also has the siege attacker attribute, allowing him to assault walled cities without siege equipment. Mammoth units in his army gain melee attack buffs, Marauder units have a lower upkeep cost, and all his units cause fear. On the battlefield, Seafang has been made into a combat ability. Sounds like a wind spell, and one can hope it's as powerful as the Wind of Death. His other ability, Hunter of Champions, pins an enemy character in place, allowing him to duel him, fulfilling his duty. He can ride a Chaos Steed, a Marauder Chariot, or a War Mammoth with a throne atop it, or, of course, he can come in on foot. We haven't been told of campaign mechanics, but it would make sense if dueling and defeating some of the greatest warriors known to the old world plays an important role in Wulfrik's campaign. This isn't just something Wulfrik does, it's something he's bound to, and it can manifest itself in a couple of ways. We might see secondary objectives pop up at random that send us chasing after various armies led by legendary lords, or alternatively, we might see Wulfrik's economy tied to the number of legendary lords he's slain at any given time. In his backstory, more warriors joined him as his exploits grew bolder, so maybe killing legendary lords ties into a manpower mechanic or unlocks higher tier units. I doubt we'll see something like that, but it would be interesting. It's always nice to think about these things. Seafang will hopefully manifest itself in a few campaign mechanics as well. I think he might be able to give his entire army Vanguard deployment, though maybe that'll be limited to a certain stance or within range of Seafang, and Seafang will probably allow him to cover great distances within a turn. How great a distance this ends up being will be interesting to see. Maybe he can teleport from one end of the map to the other, though they didn't mention anything in the roster reveal, so this is all just guesswork here. It'd be nice to see Seafang used on the campaign map, but it's highly likely that we won't have that happen. Throgg is the other legendary lord, the Troll King, unnaturally intelligent for his kind, supposedly a mutation of his. Initially, content as a raider in the cold, bitter wastes, he decided that he wanted to wipe the world of humanity and bring about an ice age of his own in honor of the Dark Gods. He's a strong melee combatant, armor-piercing with the ability to regenerate, and he's able to cause frostbite, and copious vomit is an ability that has Throgg spewing on his enemies. Though he is weak to fire, so that's something you'll have to bring to the field if you're up against Throgg, the Troll King. He's also able to build a Cave of the Rocky Throne at Erengrad, granting more buffs to troll units faction-wide. Naturally, being a troll, he doesn't really have mount options, though it'd be interesting to see a troll on a Mammoth. Outside of the legendary lords, we have the Marauder Chieftain as a melee lord who can mount a steed, a chariot, or a war mammoth. The Chieftain is going to be pretty interesting. It sounds like he'll be a decent melee combatant, though not as good as the legendary lords, of course, though on the campaign map, he's extremely customizable based on the Norscan culture of various gods and worshipping them for different buffs. Our first hero is a Skin Wolf Wurkin. These guys are anti-large with little to no armor, but physical resistance and regeneration to keep them alive and fighting. They're very fast, though I'm not sure if that translates into Vanguard deployment, and it sounds like they count as large units themselves, so bring in your anti-large units to deal with them. Then we've got the Femur Bale Fiend, a caster hero, solid in melee with access to a few lores of magic and armor sundering. So they'll be a pretty solid hero companion in your army depending on the lores they have access to, but armor sundering can be massively helpful for some of your cheaper units without armor piercing to get work done. Finally, the Shaman Sorcerer has access to more lores of magic but is very weak in melee, sort of your standard caster as an option on the field. Infantry units are plentiful. We've got Marauders, Marauder Spearmen for anti-large, Marauders with great weapons for armor piercing. We've also got Marauder Champions with shields and Marauder Champions with great weapons. The champions are the heavy infantry units, so these guys can really stick in combat and get further down the rage chain I mentioned earlier. You'll possibly want to throw them into combat as quickly as possible to get them there early on, while sending softer units for flanking maneuvers and envelopments. Marauder Hunters toss axes, while there's also a javelin throwing variant that is anti-large. The Marauder Berserkers have the Berserk attribute, allowing them to go further down that rage chain faster and gain more benefits from them as well, so expect these fearless, frenzied warriors to get a lot of hurt in. They're also very fast, so they might make for a good pseudo-cavalry unit for engaging front lines depending on that speed. Marauder Chariots and Marauder Horsemen add some cavalry strength, and I look forward to taking those chariots to the field against dwarves, and we'll see the Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes and Marauder Horsemasters on the field as well, though they'll have the rage mechanic added in. We will also see the Marauder Warwolves Chariot. These guys will have the Frostbite ability, and they'll also do range damage by throwing axes. Marauder Warhounds and Warwolves are also mentioned on the roster, though in the stream I believe they called one of them Ice Wolves. I imagine those are the Warwolves. So we've got regular Warhounds, and we've got Ice Wolves that have the Frostbite ability, and will be excellent for slowing enemy advances down, and pulling in and out with cycle charges to slow potential threats down so you can adjust your lines and bring range support if needed. Imagine sending these Ice Wolves in to intercept an incoming cavalry charge, and then tossing javelins to shut that cavalry support down. Norscan Trolls and Norscan Ice Trolls are similar to regular Trolls, though the Ice Trolls have the Frostbite ability, of course, and they vomit shards of ice. Great for pinning enemy skirmishers, cavalry, and lords in place to get them taken care of. Femur Warriors and Femur Warriors with great weapons are very slow, heavily armored units. They will be capable of eating a lot of missile fire as well, as their From the Mists ability will make them harder to hit. Not sure if that will come in as a block chance or a missile resistance stat. They will be armor sundering and will deal magical damage, so these guys are going to be great in providing support to, again, your cheaper non-armor piercing units, and will be very useful against ethereal or other physically resistant units as well. The Feral Manticore is just like the Chaos Feral Manticore, but the Feral Frostworm is going to be an interesting option. Though it will need support in combat when stuck in melee, the Frostworm has both the Chilling Aura and Frostbite. This is really going to help control the flow of battle, and a Frostworm might be very helpful, stat-dependent, in shutting down enemy lords, heroes, and cavalry alike. Skinwolves and Armored Skinwolves are akin to medium cavalry. They won't last very long in prolonged melee, but will make good cycle charges, and their physical resistance and regeneration means you'll be able to send them in to deal and eat some damage, pull out, regenerate, rinse, and repeat. The armored variant, naturally, sacrifices some of that speed and mobility for longevity on the field. The Norscan Giant is a hilarious alcoholic giant that is great at driving through infantry and beating on specific targets, just like most other giants, but again, an alcoholic instead. They didn't mention any mechanics that actually reflects that, but visually the Norscan Giant does look pretty interesting. And finally, we've got some Mammoths. The Feral Mammoth has very low leadership and can be turned away due to that low leadership with relative ease. I assume firing away at it and getting a rear charge or a surround will probably come very close to doing the trick after some damage is done. These guys are going to be great at taking care of infantry, naturally, and apparently they're the biggest unit in the game so far, which I can't wait to see in action. The War Mammoth is the tamer variant, with a Howdah carrying javelin-tossing marauders and lots of armor. This means the War Mammoth has some slight anti-large capabilities as well. Not enough to destroy a cavalry unit perhaps, but able to harass. And then, the War Mammoth with a Chaos War Shrine gives an aura of improved leadership, and it has the Giver of Glory ability. This targets a single allied unit and makes them unbreakable for a short duration. Those two buffs together might be very useful depending on how Rage works exactly, and just how valuable it is to get to those higher tiers. The Mammoths, Giants, and Frostworm will all cause terror on the field, so prepare to use them to break your enemy's will to fight and instigate mass routs. I think they're going to be a ton of fun on the battlefield. And that is the entire Norscan roster. A very exciting set of units with a lot of interesting tactical implications. I love the thought of using Frostbite and really slowing down enemy advances, pinning down cavalry and lords, and then focusing down on them, hunting them down, so to speak. I always love tactical implications when it comes to units. I look forward to seeing gameplay, and I can't wait to get our hands on these bad boys on the 10th of August. It's going to be a cold summer. As always, thank you very much for watching, and if you're interested in keeping up with Total War news and more, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Lots more to come as the marketing gears up closer and closer to release of the second game, so get excited, but remember, always stay frosty.